Hey everybody, welcome back. We have a real special treat today. We're about to get some premium information. We're so fortunate to be able to have one of DC's premier estate attorneys back with us, Mr. Michael Forster. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you, Cedric?
Fantastic, man. Thank you for making time for us. We always appreciate you dropping in and bestowing this information on us. So there's something that came up recently, and I wanted to get your insight on it because don't really hear this very often, but it's a situation, it's something that's applicable to a lot of individuals. So what exactly happens when, so let's say that there's family members and they have children, and those children are married, and there's a will. They want the money from the will. They say in the will, hey, I want money to go to the kids, but not necessarily the kids' spouses, right? So they're like, the in-law business is separate from what I'm doing with my kid. How does that work? Is that even possible?
Yeah, this comes up with a lot of people where they might not like the in-law, or maybe maybe it's not even a thing of not liking them. They just like, oh, I want to provide for my kid. I don't want to provide for this other person. So there's some different permutations here and issues to think about. The first one is if you're doing a will and you're worried you could put a clause if your kid passes away before you, have an alternate beneficiary. So it doesn't, wouldn't would be less likely to go to their spouse. If you pass away and they're still and your child is still married and still alive, then it would go to them and their spouse. If they put it, you can't do anything if they put it in a joint account and it just becomes a marital asset. That's just, that was their choice. They get the money. You can't really do much about that. But the best way is to have an alternate beneficiary in there, so that it's done. One thing to note too is some people come to me and they think, well, my son or my daughter, they might get divorced. I don't know. I don't especially don't want to go in then. In that case, like if they don't put it in a joint account, that's generally not an inheritance is generally not considered a marital asset. So it's generally not subject to it going to the person. So, telling them just to keep it separate if they do get an inheritance from you is a good way to shield that from them.
Okay, so there's some good points there. So an inheritance is generally not a marital asset. I didn't know that. That makes sense. And I was concerned. I'm glad you addressed that. If it goes into the joint account, what are you going to do? It's like, you know, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a joint account. But if they are astute and happen to have a separate account, or really, just something that is saying, hey, listen, I need to deal with things relative to this process. Let me just open an account here that is separate from everything that we do within the household, right?
Right.
Then, then that's a way that that can be done. But I guess the other way would be that first one that you mentioned, where you could appoint or direct those proceeds to someone else under certain circumstances. I think I like the separate account better, and knowing that inheritance is not something that counts as those typical kinds of funds. That's really good to hear.
Right, right. And it can be different with money or with a house. So sometimes people have family homes, and this is usually when I see the situation come up. They want to keep it within their family, and they might not think of the in-laws quite maybe being in that. Well, hopefully they're part of the family, but you know what I mean. They might not look at them the same way. And in that case, like let's say you have multiple children, they could own the house as joint tenants with the right of survivorship. So if one of the children dies, it doesn't go to the children's estate, it goes to the surviving children. So that's a kind of ownership, if you have it in that way, that would do it, so that it would go to, if someone died, it wouldn't just go to their estate. Another
Yeah,
way is to set up a trust, which is, I'm always talking about setting up a trust. But you could set up a trust and have certain provisions that really provide for all these scenarios. That might be really the best way to do it. Because with the trust, you have more control. You can have a trustee who's going to oversee things long after you pass and make sure that your wishes are sort of kept.
that's what I've been waiting for you to bring up. Look, you when you're
You know
watching.
me.
Yeah, yeah. If the audience is watching, I know you're like, oh, you should have led with that. Well, we have to, you know, give you a moment. Maybe you're yelling at the screen, coming up with it yourself. A will is good, a trust is better.
Exactly. That's the theme of almost all our videos is
Right?
we want to have something, a will is good, but a trust is better in
That's it.
pretty much all scenarios. So
That's my first time saying that, but I'm sure I'm not the first one to come up
yeah,
with it.
that's a good tagline.
You like
I
that? A
never
will is
thought of
good,
it
a
that.
trust is better. You can
Yeah.
have them. That's all yours. Yeah.
All
So
right. Thank you.
so that to me makes a lot of sense. It just removes so much ambiguity from the process. And there's some neutrality there, right? Because you have that trustee. Well, now if the person is in the house and they're like, well, why isn't it going to come? That spouse is complaining. They're like, hey, listen, and it's out of my hands,
Right.
trustee, right? So they have somebody that they can, push that blame onto to keep peace in the household if that becomes an issue.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But it's always a good to have discussions with your kids or your family about what you're planning, what you're thinking of, even though there are usually hard discussions, but you want them to know these things ahead of time, while you're alive, while you can have those conversations.
I
It's
don't
always
know
a
if
good idea.
you can speak to this right now, but just from a bare bones perspective, um, I think a lot of times people look at these from a dollars and cents standpoint, when obviously those are valid considerations, but there are other things that should be factored in. But what's the difference, if you will, between somebody saying, hey, Mr. Forster, I'm here, I want to set up a will, or I want to set up a trust today? Like, is it even worth the haggling and making a different choice? I know obviously a trust is more involved, but I know it's worth it in the long run, but I mean, what are we talking about here? Is it like 10 times more? It's not, is it?
Oh, as far as the cost difference, no, it's not. It's not. I mean, it depends on what attorney you use. With me, it might. I don't know. It really depends, but it's
Sure.
definitely not 10 times as much. It might be twice as much, but it might still be within the budget, and it's
Mhm.
definitely always cheaper than having to go through probate. So
Mhm.
it varies by the situation, but for almost all scenarios, I think it's worth the extra upfront cost.
That's what I wanted to get to, because the fee, see, there's that old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And so you're going to pay now or later. So you can spend a little bit more upfront for the prevention, right? Then you think about if somebody has you know, some type of high blood pressure or heart disease or something like that, that medicine is very expensive. If somebody came to you 10 years ago and said, hey, you give me an extra $5, I can prevent you from having heart disease,
Right,
instead of paying $500 a month for the medicine. You see what I'm saying? So you have to look at these things. It's called estate planning for a reason.
right.
And I just,
Yeah, no, it is. I had a call literally this afternoon from someone whose father owned a property. He got remarried, and he put his wife, this person's stepmother on the deed.
yeah,
Passed away first. And then so his stepmother passed away, and she wanted to know, how much do I get out of this? And I said, unfortunately, nothing, because the stepmother passed away second, and she didn't have a will, and she didn't include, so it just goes to her biological daughters. And so the biological children of the man who passed away get nothing. So he didn't set it up in any kind of way to provide for his children. Didn't just because his wife passed away first, her children get everything. I can't imagine that's what they would have wanted. It was a hard conversation, but that's just was the reality.
That's insane. And so if he would have put a trust in place, this wouldn't happen.
Exactly. He could have put a trust in place that, his wife could have it for as long as she lived, and then it would be split with, if he died, it'd be split with her and his children or something, some kind of scenario like that. It would have been much more fair. And if his wife had passed away first, her children would have gotten nothing. So it was basically whoever passed away first, however passed away second, their children would inherit based on the way they set it up. And I imagine they didn't even think about that or foresee it when they set it up that way. But that's just a cautionary tale, and it's now, of course, it's way too late to do anything. She has no options for that family home.
That is insane. But this is the point. These things are happening to people in real time. That was a call from today.
That was literally an hour ago. Yeah, I had that call. So this things come up
Yeah. And
frequently. So I like to hear from people before there's a problem.
exactly. And so like
There's a lot more we can do. Yeah.
don't put it off. Like
Right.
just have a conversation. Get in touch with Michael. Listen, I've held you up long enough. Like that right there. I mean, the audience can see you blew me away, so to speak, with that one. That is, I'm flabbergasted and really quite sad for those people. But now other individuals need to learn from that. Now other people need to get to the point where they say, you know what? I don't want to risk my family's financial future losing everything that I worked so hard to build that I want them to be able to hold on to. So let's get in touch with Michael. Let's get a consultation going. Let's have a conversation. It doesn't cost you $1 million. I mean, I'm being
Yeah.
funny, but it's
Right.
like, well, this is something that needs to happen. This is a good guy. I'm sure you probably watch other videos on the channel with him. If not, go watch him and then call, text, or email him, whatever method he likes. What methods do you like, Michael?
So it's all fine. You can call, you can email. There's a form on my website. So there's different ways. I can receive text on my office number too. So any of those methods are fine.
Nice, nice.
But
Yeah.
thank you for the kind words. Hopefully,
Yeah.
someone else can benefit from this woman's story.
Yeah, I hope we're not, just screaming out into the ether here. Let's let's get people connected with you so that we can stop hearing these horror stories, man, and start to hear some success. Michael Forster is for the people. So we want to make sure that the people get helped here. Call, email, fill out the form, do whatever you got to do, talk to him and get to the point where you can feel comfortable sleeping at night knowing that you've done everything you need to do for your family. Michael, thank you again. As
Yeah.
always, great pleasure sharing your knowledge with us, man. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you. My pleasure.
All your info at the bottom so folks can reach out to you. And yeah, man, until next time.
All right, take it easy.